My name is Daniel Harper, and the experience I'm about to share will likely challenge what you believe about wealth, power, and the afterlife. During a life-threatening moment, I was taken to a place that can only be described as hell. Among the many souls I encountered, two stood out. Men who were once celebrated as titans of industry and paragons of success. These were individuals whose names were synonymous with power and influence during their lives on Earth. But in that moment, they were no longer billionaires. They were souls weighed down by unbearable regret. The first man I saw was Steve Jobs, the legendary co-founder of Apple. It was shocking to see someone so revered in such torment, but his expression told me he wasn't surprised to be there. I lived my life chasing perfection and innovation, he told me, his voice filled with sorrow. But in the end, I neglected the things that mattered most: relationships, compassion, and humility. He confessed that his relentless pursuit of success had consumed him, leaving little room for faith or selflessness. Jobs admitted, "I was so focused on shaping the world that I forgot who created it." He explained how his pride had blinded him to the warnings of those who tried to guide him spiritually. "I thought my achievements were enough, but I see now how wrong I was," he said, shaking his head. His regret was palpable as he spoke about the many times he ignored opportunities to help others without expecting something in return. His innovative legacy, though admired on Earth, brought him no comfort in the afterlife. Not far from him, I saw Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, who passed away not long ago. Allen was known for his philanthropy and contributions to technology, but here he was consumed by a deep sense of regret. "I thought I was doing enough by giving away my wealth," he said, his voice trembling. "But my giving was tainted by pride and self-interest. I wanted the recognition more than I wanted to help." He confessed that his philanthropy often lacked the genuine compassion that transforms lives. Allen continued, "I believed my success made me untouchable, but I see now how empty it all was." He admitted that he had ignored the spiritual void in his life, filling it with material possessions and accolades. "I let money become my identity," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. He spoke of how his wealth gave him the illusion of control, but in the end, it only led him further away from God. His regret was a sobering reminder that even acts of charity can be meaningless if not rooted in love and humility. Both men shared hauntingly similar stories about how their success became their downfall. Jobs spoke about how he had prioritized innovation over relationships, often alienating those closest to him. "I thought my work would speak for itself, but I see now that I neglected the people who truly mattered," he said. Allen echoed this sentiment, admitting that his obsession with building his legacy left little room for personal growth. Their stories were eerily alike, showing how the pursuit of wealth and power can blind even the most brilliant minds. As I listened to them, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sorrow and frustration. These were men who had every opportunity to make a positive impact on the world, yet they fell short in the ways that mattered most. "We thought our wealth would save us," Jobs said, his voice filled with bitterness. Allen added, "But we were wrong. No amount of money can buy salvation." Their words were a powerful reminder that material success is meaningless without a foundation of faith and morality. The torment they endured was unlike anything I could have imagined. Jobs was trapped in a room filled with mirrors, each reflecting his achievements while amplifying his regrets. "Every time I look, I see the people I hurt, the opportunities one missed," he said, his voice breaking. Allen, on the other hand, was surrounded by the faces of those he had claimed to help but ultimately let down. "Their eyes haunt me," he said, his tone filled with despair. Their punishment was not just physical but deeply emotional, forcing them to confront the consequences of their actions. Both men admitted that they had moments in their lives when they felt the pull of something greater than themselves. Jobs spoke about how he had occasionally wondered about the meaning of life but dismissed it as irrelevant. "I thought I had all the answers," he said, his tone filled with regret. Allen confessed that he had often felt a void that no amount of money could fill but chose to ignore it. "I thought success would complete me, but it only made the emptiness worse," he said. The most heartbreaking part of their stories was the realization that they had wasted their potential to do good. Jobs said, I could have used my influence to inspire kindness and generosity, but I chose ambition instead. Alan added, I had the means to change lives, but I let my pride get in the way. Their regret was a stark contrast to the admiration they had received during their lives. It was a sobering reminder that our actions, no matter how grand, are meaningless without the right intentions. As they spoke, I could feel their desperation to share their stories with the living. Jobs said, if I could go back, I would trade all my wealth for a single moment of true connection. Alan added, I would give anything to have one more chance to make things right. Their pleas were filled with urgency, as if they believed their words could still make a difference. I knew that their stories were meant to serve as a warning, not just for me but for everyone. Their regret was a testament to the fleeting nature of worldly success. Jobs spoke with a trembling voice, I wish I had paid more attention to the people who tried to guide me spiritually. He admitted there were times when friends and even strangers told him about the importance of faith, but he dismissed their advice as irrelevant. I thought I was too intelligent to believe in something I couldn't see or touch, he confessed. Alan nodded in agreement, adding, I thought faith was for the weak, not for someone as accomplished as me. Their arrogance during life was now the very thing that tormented them in death. Alan continued, when I was alive, I measured success by how much I had accomplished and how much wealth I had accumulated. He now realized that he had built his empire on a foundation of sand, neglecting the true values of humility and love. The applause of the world was so loud, I couldn't hear the whispers of my conscience, he said with a bitter laugh. Jobs echoed this sentiment, saying, I was so busy changing the world that I forgot to change myself. Both men admitted that they had allowed their egos to drown out the voice of truth. As I stood there, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sorrow for them. Here were two men who had everything the world could offer but were still empty inside. We fooled ourselves into thinking we were invincible, Jobs said, shaking his head. But now we see how fragile we really were. Alan added, we had every opportunity to make a difference in ways that truly mattered, but we chose to chase shadows instead. Jobs reflected on his life, saying, I thought I was creating something eternal, but now I see that everything I built will eventually fade. He admitted that his focus on innovation and progress had blinded him to the more profound aspects of life. I see now that I could have used my influence to uplift others, to guide them toward something greater than themselves, he said. Alan agreed, adding, we had the power to inspire change, but instead we inspired greed and competition. Their confessions were a harsh reminder that even the most successful people are not immune to the consequences of their choices. Jobs said, I always thought my name would be my legacy, but now I see that it means nothing here. Alan added, all the awards, the accolades, the recognition, they're all meaningless in the face of eternity. Their words were a sobering reminder that the values of this world often run counter to the values of the afterlife. Both men expressed regret over how they had treated the people around them. Jobs admitted that he had often been ruthless and unforgiving, even to those closest to him. I justified my behavior by telling myself it was necessary for success, he said, his voice filled with regret. Alan, on the other hand, said, I hid behind my generosity, pretending that it made up for my flaws, but deep down, I knew it wasn't enough. Their relationships were marked by superficiality, leaving them isolated and alone in the end. The torment they endured was not just emotional but deeply spiritual. Jobs described how he was constantly reminded of the moments he had chosen ambition over compassion. It's like a film that plays over and over, showing me everything I could have done differently, he said. Alan added, the faces of those I let down haunt me every moment. I can't escape their pain. Their punishment was a reflection of the lives they had lived, forcing them to confront their failures in the most excruciating way. Despite their regret, there was a sense of urgency in their voices as they pleaded for their stories to be shared. Jobs said, tell them that success is not worth the price of their soul. Alan added, let them know that no amount of wealth can shield them from the consequences of their actions. Their words were a desperate attempt to prevent others from making the same mistakes they had. If I had known then what I know now, Jobs said, I would have lived my life very differently. Alan shared a haunting thought, saying, I used to think that my wealth could solve any problem, but here it means nothing. Jobs agreed, adding, we came into this world with nothing, and we leave with nothing. Why did we spend our lives chasing what we couldn't take with us? Their reflections were a powerful reminder of the futility of materialism. The only thing that matters is what we give, not what we take, Alan said. And we failed to understand that when it mattered most. As they spoke, I could sense their overwhelming regret for not having shared their realizations while they were still alive. Jobs said, I could have used my voice and platform to guide people toward something greater, but I was too focused on myself. Alan added, I had the resources to inspire real change, but I chose to build monuments to my own success instead. Their missed opportunities weighed heavily on them, and they were desperate for others to learn from their mistakes. Jobs said, if I had just one more chance, I would trade all my wealth for the ability to live a life of purpose and humility. Alan nodded, adding, I would give anything to go back and use my influence for good, instead of feeding my own ego. Their words were filled with an urgency that I couldn't ignore. Tell them that time is short, Jobs said. They need to act now before it's too late. Alan agreed, saying, the clock is ticking, and no one knows when their time will come. Their stories were a sobering reminder of how easily we can lose sight of what truly matters. Jobs said, we spent our lives chasing the wrong things, and now we're paying the price. Alan added, we thought we were building legacies, but all we built were prisons for our souls. Their reflections were a stark contrast to the lives they had lived on Earth. We had it all, but we had nothing, Jobs said. And now we see that too late. As I listened to them, I realized that their stories were not just warnings but also calls to action. Jobs said, tell them to use their gifts and talents for good, not for their own glory. Alan added, let them know that the only legacy that matters is one of love and compassion. Their words were a powerful reminder of the importance of living a life of purpose. It's not too late for them, Jobs said, but they need to start now. Alan agreed, saying, every moment is an opportunity to change their destiny. Both men pleaded with me to share their story, saying, let the world know that even the richest and most powerful are not exempt from judgment. Jobs added, I once thought I was untouchable, that my wealth could shield me from anything, but I was wrong. Alan nodded, saying, wealth blinded us, making us believe we were gods in our own right. But we were nothing more than fools playing with temporary treasures. Their voices were filled with urgency as they emphasized that people must focus on what truly matters in life. The love you give, the kindness you show, and the humility you live with, those are the things that endure, Jobs said. Alan reflected, in my life, I built things to last for centuries, but none of that matters here. Not the buildings, not the technology, not the empire. Jobs added, what we thought would make us eternal actually became our chains in the afterlife. Their reflections made me think deeply about how often people prioritize the wrong things. If only people knew how fleeting success is, they would value the eternal over the temporary, Alan said. Jobs agreed, saying, what is the point of gaining the whole world if you lose your soul? As our conversation continued, Jobs shared a chilling thought. In hell, there's no time to change, no opportunity to repent. It's over the moment you cross into eternity. Alan nodded gravely, adding, we ignored the quiet voice in our hearts calling us to change. Now that voice is deafening, but it's too late to act on it. Their remorse was palpable, but so was their hope that their story could prevent others from making the same mistakes. If this message can save even one person, it will have been worth sharing, Jobs said. People need to wake up before it's too late, Alan added. Jobs then revealed a moment from his life that haunted him deeply. I once had an employee who shared their faith with me. I dismissed it, thinking it was a distraction from work. But now I see it was a lifeline I ignored. Alan added, I can recall moments when people tried to talk to me about God, and I arrogantly laughed them off. Now I'd give anything to hear those words again. Their arrogance during life had cost them dearly, and they hoped others would learn from their regrets. Don't let pride keep you from the truth, Jobs warned. Alan echoed, humility is the key to saving your soul. As I prepared to leave, Both men made one final plea. Jobs said, "Tell them to look beyond their bank accounts, their accomplishments, and their ambitions. None of that will save them." Alan added, "It's not what you build on earth that matters. It's what you build for eternity." Their words resonated deeply with me, and I promised to share their story. "Don't wait until it's too late," Jobs urged. "Start now, while there's still time," Alan said, his voice breaking with emotion. Leaving them behind was one of the hardest moments of my life. Their sorrow and regret were seared into my memory, but so was their hope that their story could change lives. As I returned to my body, I carried with me a profound understanding of what truly matters. Wealth, power, and success are meaningless if they come at the cost of your soul. Let this be a wake-up call to everyone. Live a life of purpose, humility, and love, because eternity is real, and the choices you make now will determine your fate forever.